YouTube? Today we're gonna do a recap of the build that actually won the Endless Delve event. And the Endless Delve event, I think, ended a couple days ago. It lasted 10 days, and it was pretty surprising how deep people actually got. So if we look at the Delve ladder, the number one guy got to 1586 max steps, which is really not that far away from the regular Scourge ladder, although most people don't really push the Scourge ladder. So we're gonna see what build this guy actually played. We're gonna see if there's any tech that we could potentially use for our regular league characters and what this actually means in the future. Now, before I continue on this journey, it is important to note that Detonate Dead was actually the number one build, and it's actually kind of crazy, but it does make sense. Monster life does scale in Delve in terms of you can blow up the other monsters. And the interesting thing is whether this person was using Ignite or on hit DD, and we'll be able to see what they're doing once we look at this person's gear. So let's go see what the number one Delver in the Endless Delve SSF event ended up doing and how they actually got to 1600 depth, which if you told me beforehand, I would have said was nearly impossible. Now, when we look at these top people's gear, I think the top two person both had Corpse Walker. Now, it is important to know, I'm not really sure if this person actually changed their gear around or if this scepter is actually better than Ashes of the Sun. I'm not really sure how you could actually beat out this unique scepter. So in Endless Delve, you're given a few uniques that are pretty game breaking in terms of what they offer that is not available in the normal game. And one of these is Ashes of the Sun. What this allows you to do is you have 500% increased ignite duration on enemies, which pretty much is kind of like 5 times damage if you roll a huge ignite and you're able to get a huge one going. So this scepter or mace is completely game breaking for ignite builds, and it is absolutely crazy. And if you look at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of the top 10 people are all using the scepter, and it is actually just insane. So basically, let's go see what gear this person has. So he has Ashes of the Sun, and in it, he's casting Frost Wall, Frost Bomb, Spell Cascade. So the reason why we use Frost Wall and Spell Cascade is to just block off all of the projectiles that come in. If you can hide in a corner, it allows you to stay a lot safer and be able to do damage from a distance. And this helmet is just a lot of armor, it's life and double res. As you might notice, in Endless Delve, there was no crafting bench, so the standard of gear is a lot lower. So here he has cast when damage taken, Molten Shell, increased duration, and Wave of Conviction. Now the reason you use Wave of Conviction here is you get an exposure applied of 15% reduced elemental resistance, so that this makes you do more damage. And at depth 1600, you would assume that you would have found Ol's Amulet quite a few times. And here he has Grace has no reservation. Some other good ones could be like Determination or maybe even Malevolence or something like that. Now here he has a shield that has Fracture plus Fire Res, which is pretty good. And it's 27 life, 15 all res, and 5% physical damage reduction. It's actually pretty crazy. After delving to 1600, this is the best shield that he could have found. Now, this shield is not too bad, but I'm assuming that at depth 1500, you probably... I'm not sure if this guy actually gets one-shotted because he doesn't go full ZDPS and he still has a decent chunk of survivability. Now, for his chest piece, just another armor evasion chest piece. It was an absolute nightmare in Endless Delve to get a 6-link. But for his chest piece, he's running Swift Affliction, Ignite Proliferation, Inspiration, Burning Damage Support, Vault Detonate Dead, and Combustion. And these actually end up being the exact links that I'm running currently in Gauntlet League because I'm playing an Inquisitor Detonate Dead build. And the only difference is that I'm not running burning damage support and I'm running Unbound Ailments instead. Now, this is pretty much the standard Ignite DD build that Steel Mage actually played in the recent Gauntlet and was able to kill all the bosses. Now, the reason you want to scale Ignite is because you can DD one of the big corpses as a Race Spectre, and then you'll be able to have this Ignite rolling that is the biggest, that is the highest, because without another like Emberwake ring, you cannot stack Ignites. It will only take the highest Ignite on the mob at a current time. So here he has a Flammability ring, and this ring is just your standard life and resist ring. So you can see overall this gear is not too special, right? So it has to be about the mechanics of the skill. Now this person does have corpse walk when equipped on the corpse walker. What this means is that you're able to generate corpses and you can theoretically not have to desecrate and you can just pretty much immediately start detonate deading, which is huge for the gameplay of this build. So in here, he has shield charge, faster attacks, grace, and flame dash. So he's using shield charge and flame dash as his movement skills. Now he has an elder letter belt, which is pretty insane. I didn't even know that you could get an elder letter belt in Delve. Let me make this smaller so that you can see it. Move it up, I mean. So here is life triple res, and then he also has level 22 enduring cry. I'm not really sure how often he uses enduring cry. He might just have it on left click, but he doesn't have call to arms, so he can't really do that. And now, lastly, we have the gloves with life, chance to suppress spell damage, and no resist. And Dex is a pretty big issue for this build. Detonate Dead is a Dex gem, and you will run into Dex issues, especially if you're using Grace. Now we have Flame Surge here, Arctic Armor, and Tempest Shield. So the auras he ends up running, I think, are... Is he running Determination anywhere? Yeah, he's running Determination, Flesh and Stone, Defiance Banner, Arctic Armor, Tempest Shield. So overall, you can see he doesn't really choose to run any damage auras, and all of his auras are pretty much defenses. So it shows you that in Delve, some defenses are still absolutely necessary, even if you're at the depth that you think that you would get one-shotted in. You see here for this profile too, that it is all about no one really goes ZHP delving, and I did make that mistake. I made a pretty big mistake when I played Endless Delve in thinking that you're actually supposed to go like super squishy, but it turns out it is a lot easier to delve if your character is just tanky, and you should probably just choose a skill that has good mechanics in terms of dealing a lot of damage, and corpse life is your friend here, especially if you could start the chain with dynamites or something to get the first mob ignited. So overall, we have this guy crafted it with a hollow fossil, I see. But basically, this build, you can see that Detonate Dead ended up being the winner by far. And it's actually crazy that someone's actually able to reach that depth. So if you look at the Delve ladder, there's actually someone else who reached 1200 with a Spectral Helix. We could maybe look at that build another day, but that's actually pretty absurd. I did not think that Spectral Helix could get to that deep. But basically, Detonate Dead is an extremely strong build. Currently, I'm in Gauntlet. I am playing a Detonate Dead build. I'm using Combustion, Unbound Ailments, Ignite Proliferation, Detonate Dead, and Inspiration. Now, the reason why Detonate Dead is so good in the Gauntlet is because you're able to have Spectres. And right now, you just go to Heist and you summon the Spectres. And this is an Auto Enforcer, which shoots out the balls in Heist. So you just go into Heist, and preferably you have to do, I think, repository or tunnels, and then you desecrate the corpses on the ground, and then you raise Spectre when you see the Auto Enforcer. Now the reason we choose the Auto Enforcer and Rusty Crab or whatever, I don't, Rusty something, but the reason we chose those is because those Spectres get added to the desecrate pool, and those mobs have like 700% increased maximum life compared to other baseline mobs. So that's the reason why Detonate Dead is so strong. Detonate Dead will scale with monster life on maps. It will scale with the harder content that you do. The only huge problem with Detonate Dead is the fact that if you do Shaper, where the mob pool is super diluted, when you summon and desecrate corpses, you will notice that you will get really bad corpses that are really low life. Thus, you will really handicap your damage. So when there is very little mob pools in the actual invitation or something, or boss encounter, for instance like Maven invitation or any of those reach invitations, what this means is that whenever you desecrate, you'll have a really high chance of getting one of your Spectre minions as a corpse, and that means you will do insane amounts of damage, multitudes of more. So that's why when you see people do Detonate Dead in the Gauntlet and they do boss fights, that Shaper is so bad, because Shaper has a really big mob pool because of all of those entry bosses that you have to kill. So that's the reason why Detonate Dead does seem to sometimes be an inconsistent skill. Now the main way you scale Detonate Dead is you want flat generic percent elemental damage. So what this means is that spell damage does not work, so that you should never take notes like spell. Wait, I took a spell damage note on a tree. Oh, wait, I'm trolling. But basically, you should never take any spell damage notes on a tree. They are kind of completely useless and don't really do anything to scale the actual hit. But Detonate Dead is probably one of my favorite builds so far that I've played in Gauntlet, and I do think that it has pretty high potential for a league starter in the future if they don't nerf the mechanics of the Spectre or just Ignite Prolif in general. Ignite Prolif feels super nice to play with. And I think the reason why this guy was able to push higher than the other people is that he pretty much had an extra link because he didn't need to run Ignite Proliferation because he has Barex Respite. What Barex Respite does is when you kill an ignited enemy, inflict an equivalent ignite on each nearby enemy. So this person essentially had a 7 link, which means that he had a huge leg up on the other people. So this person was actually even running Discipline. So you can see here that life is pretty important. So I wonder what happened to this character. Did he play more in Scourgely? And he actually just slapped on. He's playing Righteous Fire with a Mage Foot. So that's what he ended up doing with that character. But basically, build is super fun. And I do think that it is a very strong league starter. If you're going to play the Endless Atlas event, it would be a very good choice, especially with being able to blow up the Atlas bosses on top of other mobs. And it should be a lot of damage. But Detonate Dead is a pretty old school build, and that it reminds me a lot of the Flame Blast totems and stuff like that. And old school Detonate Dead with elemental proliferation, and basically just double dipping of fire damage for ignite. And I'm not really sure if fire damage still double dips anymore, but mostly it seems like everything just gets scaled off of fire damage over time multiplier on the tree, and you'll also get scaled off a corpse you spawn have 10% increased maximum life. So basically, Endless Delve dominated by Detonate Dead and dominated by Ignite because of the fact that you can chain the Ignite from killing off one mob with Dynamite. And super cool build, and definitely something I never expected that someone would be able to get to these depths in the Endless Delve event. But it does prove that player ingenuity wins out again, and that GGG will never be able to hold us down and nerf us to the ground because we'll always find a way to rise above the ashes. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Mirrors, Exalts, and Mage Bloods than me. And maybe you guys can choose to try out some Detonate Dead because it is probably one of the more fun builds or most fun builds I've ever played in Gauntlet. But in terms of Trade League, there's no way I'll be playing Detonate Dead because it is still a 2-button skill. But thanks for watching. Bye.